Every one of us have a calling in our life, a mission in our life, a purpose for our life, a dream that God has intended for our life, but many times we don't fulfill it. Why? Why is that? Well, that's what we're going to talk about on Voice of Faith today. I'm going to take you to one of my most go-to scriptures that I do all the time, and that was when Joshua took up the leadership after Moses passed. And after Joshua took up the leadership, God began to speak to Joshua in Joshua 1, verse 8 and verse 9. And actually, not just those verses, but those are verse 9 is the one I'm going to focus on. And it says here, it says, "Have I not commanded you, be strong and of good courage. Do not be afraid, nor be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." Isn't it interesting that God would say, as soon as he took up the leadership of Moses, "Haven't I commanded you?" It's not a suggestion. It's not an option. He says, this is a command. He says, "Be strong and of good courage. Do not be afraid, nor be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." So it's a command that we not be afraid. We're talking this week about how to conquer fear. Really, that's what we're talking about. We talked about how fear will paralyze you. Fear will keep you back from your potential. Today, I want you to understand that God has a mission for you. He has a dream for your life. He has a calling on your life that he wants you to fulfill. And that was God's calling for Joshua, is to take the children of Israel into the promised land. If you remember the story, there were 12 spies 40 years earlier that went in and spied out the promised land. And out of the 12, 10 came back and says, "We can't do it." They were afraid. They didn't want to take the risk. They didn't want to take the chance to move in. And then there were 2 that says, "We can do it." One of those 2 was Joshua. The other one was Caleb. And as far as according to Scripture, that whole generation wandered in the wilderness for 40 years, including Joshua, including Moses, including Caleb, until Moses passed. Not only did he pass, but that whole generation passed, and Joshua and Caleb were able to go into the promised land. Why is it? How come they could go into the promised land? Well, all the people that were fearful had to be moved out of the way in order for God to be able to take them into the promised land. There's a whole new generation that could be led in to the promised land, but it required faith and not fear. He said, you've got to be strong, you got to be of good courage, you cannot be afraid, you cannot be dismayed, and most importantly, you need to know that I am on your side. I'm with you wherever you go. Listen, if you know that God is part of the equation of what he wants you to pursue and do, then you can accomplish anything and everything that he intended for you in your life and through your life. And so whatever it is, maybe there's a business that you're supposed to be starting. Maybe there's some people that struggle just becoming a member of a local body, fearful of whatever. There's all kinds of phobias, all kinds of fears that people give into, anxieties, worries, concerns. All those things are just fear. We need to make sure that we don't give into those things. We step out in what God has for us. Be strong. Be of good courage. Do not be afraid. Do not be dismayed. And most importantly, again, I want you to know that God's with you. He's going to help you, and you're going to do great things with your life, great things through your life, especially when you get connected into a local body and all of you bring your talents, your gifts together. You can make a great impact. I love you. I hope that speaks to you. And don't forget, if you work the word will work.